Rob Keogh with us now, and it's interesting. 2022, hell of a season for you, finishing up with in the presentation at the end of the season, Championship Player of the Year, Players Player of the Year, which I know is always something that means a lot to cricketers to get that. How satisfying was it to have that sort of climax to quite a memorable season?
Yeah, like you said, players always the one everyone wants to win. I've been to a number of end of season dinners now, and it's the main award of the night. So to be voted for by your teammates, obviously, is very nice and just topped off a good year. Yeah.
It was a memorable year for a number of respects. We'll come on to some more of them later on, but 100th first class appearance and going past 5,000 first class runs as well. Cricketers have different ideas about statistics, and sometimes I'm not sure how honest they are when they say, well, I'm not worried about figures at all. What about you, Rob? I know, and I suspect from when we've spoken about these things before, they do actually mean quite a bit to you, these sort of milestones.
I think they mean a bit to every cricketer, to be honest. It's not something you seek and look for. It's something that when they come up, it's nice to be told, obviously, you've hit those milestones. I don't go strolling through the internet to find how many runs I am away from a next milestone. I'll leave you to tell me that at the end of the game, or Alex will put a nice Instagram post up to say how many runs you've got. It's just something to look back on at the end of your career, to be sort of put in a list of people that I looked up to as a young academy player, and getting the chance to play with those players, and then sort of hopefully try and, I mean, I've got a long way to go to get to some of the people I played with, but just to try and tick off the list really and try and get as high as you can on that list.
But it's interesting you talk about lists there because, for example, centuries, I think, one that we've touched on before, 14, I think, first-class hundreds for Northamptonshire, which puts you in company of some serious players from the people would look back on and say, greats of yesteryear. And I just think it must be really satisfying to think, I'm bracketed with those sort of players.
Yeah, definitely, and that is the nice thing. For me, being able to look back on the end of my career when I do finish playing and sort of seeing that list and seeing who you're sort of up there with as some of the names of people I looked up to, for me is a massive achievement. And if kids and grandkids ever do come, it will be something for them to look up to. You only have to look at young baby's tales. His dad's a legend of the club, and he'll be sort of aspiring to get on that list as well, I'd imagine, because he would have been in and around some of those great players as well. So, yeah, it's not something I'd necessarily look at now while I'm playing, but it's something that I'd like to look back on the end of my career and say, wow, yeah, I am up there with those names. It's quite cool.
Perhaps talk a little bit about the whole argument or debate over domestic structure, which obviously is very much ongoing at the moment. But I do wonder whether, you say you celebrated down at Chelmsford, 100 first-class appearances for Northamptonshire. The back of the mind of people like me and sort of more of a traditionalist, you think, well, is Rob Keogh going to be the last player to make 100 first-class appearances for Northamptonshire? If there's less Championship cricket, players do obviously move around more. You might actually be the last of a breed.
You never know. I mean, the cricket is changing every year. It is changing. When I first started playing, we were playing 16 games. Moving wasn't as popular. You sort of tended to stay where you are. Now guys sort of move around the country seeking different opportunities. Yeah, I mean, there are guys who are probably pushing on 100 first-class games anyway. So we do have that bit of experience. I'd like to think that some of the young guys in the squad would probably go on and hit that milestone. We've got guys there who are still young and played a relatively decent amount of cricket. So there's no reason why they can't go on and play for another 10 years or so and tick off their names on that list too.
Continuing a look back to last year, was your most successful season as a bowler in red ball cricket, 34 wickets. We talked a little bit during the season about one or two things that you worked on, and obviously they must have had the desired effect. Just talk us through a little bit the process of getting yourself ready as a bowler for the start of the season, the run up, for example, and things like that did seem a little bit different.
Yeah, I've always felt like a part-time bowler, if you like. Even I think there was a year here, 2016, where I got 30 odd wickets as well. That was 16 games as well, so there's obviously more chances to bowl there, and I think the 9-15 in one game obviously helps. I just tried to tinker. I think too many things back then. Almost seeking white ball success, I think, a little bit there, which worked the following season and the season after, and then you always get a little bit found out because the game moves on. Lost confidence in my bowling over that sort of period, and it just got to a point. I went to Cape Town and did a bit of net bowling at the Cobras there, and sort of tweaking around a little bit, speaking to a few of the Cobra guys who, I mean, some of them have played a lot of cricket, some of them haven't, but I always like to try and speak to the batters there. They're professional cricketers at the end of the day. And just ended up tweaking a few bits. And I actually this year got the chance to speak to a few spinners around the country. I spoke to Harmer down at Chelmsford. Spoke to him a little bit here. I know it was the last game of the season, and just trying to pick their brains on what they think, because he's an amazing off spinner, and if I can get anything out of him, then it's always going to help. But the main thing for me was confidence, I think, and backing myself. And Youngie and even Ricardo, as his stint as captain, were really good with me, sort of trusting me to set my own fields, trusting in me to be the lead spinner, which sort of rubbed off, and I sort of grew with confidence throughout the season, if you like, and sort of backed myself more to be a threat rather than just a part-time spinner. And I spoke to a few guys. I spoke to Ben Duckett recently, actually, just about my bowling, and he's saying, you are a batter, which gives you a bit more of an advantage as someone who's just a spinner. I've seen that work for Will Jacks at the minute. He's been picked for England as a spinner that bats, and he thinks as a batter, which helps, I think. So I also have that sort of benefit, if you like.
Yeah. It's a really interesting glimpse you've just given us there into the professional game, because so often, and I know Nick Cook, who you will know, was just about overlapped, and Nick was a great one for, just retired of course from the umpires list, and Nick was a great one for when he was looking after the second team, for having players together at the end, both teams together at the end of the match, and he regretted that was rather going out of the game. But what you're saying there's still a lot of chat amongst players from different counties and exchange of ideas, and actually it's quite reassuring to hear.
I think he is right. I think it is going out of the game a little bit. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I remember being 21 once and Midders dragging me into the Lancs dressing room to speak to Simon Katic, and I was pooping myself and very nervous. And once you do it, you realise everyone's human beings as well, and everyone's, it's actually quite, I guess, a sign of respect to that player that you want to talk to them about their knowledge. It's something that our senior guys do try and push on to the young lads. If you get a chance to go and speak to, we played Hashim Amla twice. Like, if you get a chance to speak to Hashim Amla, speak to Hashim Amla. I spoke to Hash about bowling, actually. We bowled at him here in the second innings, and I actually felt like I bowled pretty well at him and had him in a bit of trouble, actually. But I spoke to him about bowling and what he felt I could have done better to maybe have got him out in the end. Just those little things. We're lucky enough to play against cricketers who have played Test match cricket, or Hashim Amla was one of the best players in the world at some point. So if you get a chance to speak to him, why wouldn't you try and pick his brains? And it's something the senior players do try and push on the young lads, because everyone, like I said, everyone's a human being, and I think people actually quite enjoy being asked about it.
Yeah.
Emilio, I know, spent some time with Alistair Cook when we played against Essex. Like, he's one of Emilio's role models. So it's not very often you get the chance to play against your role models. So if you do get a chance to pick their brains, and even if it's a 1%, it's only going to make you better.
We talked a bit about red ball. Let's come on to white ball for a second, because obviously you're one of those players that plays in all formats. As a senior player, you've obviously been involved with Northamptonshire now in the first team, 10, 11 years. This white ball business, just the success has proved elusive in the last few seasons. Obviously won the T20 2013, 2016. Since then, not many appearances in the knockout stages. The 50 over again has been a bit of a desert. What do you put that down to?
The game moves on quickly, and I think if you don't adapt, you get left behind. This is me being brutally honest here now. I honestly, I look at us in the field compared to other teams, and I think we're behind a lot of the other teams. That's an area where we can improve. If you can save 10, 15 runs in a T20 in the field, then, you know, it makes that run chase a bit easier. I don't know, it's something that white ball's massive now in England. It is the priority for most teams. We're working hard. We are trying to improve it. I mean, I still class myself as a fairly inexperienced player in T20. I've played a lot of T20 games, but not necessarily batted that many times. When I first sort of started playing, I was a bit of a specialist fielder under capes and didn't get much time in the middle. So I'm still sort of learning myself in that respect. But we've also got a few young players that are very, very exciting young players in white ball cricket, and they need to grow in confidence. And, you know, you do learn from the losses and the not qualifyings as well as qualifying. You know, we should have qualified last year and arguably the year before. Yeah, I think the guys are working hard. They're trying to upskill and get better every day, I guess. And, you know, with signing Dave Willey's definitely going to help. He brings bat and ball and also field. We all know he's a gun fielder as well. So, and also experience. Yeah. He's someone that guys can speak to and learn from his experiences. He's come across everything pretty much in his playing career now. So if guys can pick his brains and, you know, sort of learn from him. We've obviously got Linny coming back, who had a big effect on the club, not just the team. I know, speaking to sponsors and whoever, they loved him, and ticket sales certainly showed that. So he's had a great effect on the club. So we've got two guys there who've played a lot of cricket. And yeah, we just got to learn from those. Just
one final point, Rob. Again, we were talking about sort of champagne moments from last season. One I did enjoy very much was the warm-up game for the 50 over on your home patch at Lancott Park at Dunstable. And how special was it to actually be captain for the day, of course, and to get to lead the side out on your club's home ground against Bedfordshire?
Yeah, always. I love going back down there. Dad's chairman anyway, so I get down there quite a bit. He has his little Sunday lunch club where he goes down and has a few beers, so I'll pop my head in. But it's always nice to go down there and as captain of the club that I've been at for a long time, and sort of felt like I was giving back to both a little bit there. It was tough, don't get me wrong, because I think Jumbie got injured in the first 10 and so did Glover, so we ended up relying on Emilio as our senior seamer. And yeah, it was tough, but I love going back down there, and I've been badgering away at Gav to try and get some cricket down there for a long time. I know they play second team cricket there, but to get a first team fixture down there is great. I think I am biased, but I think the facilities are pretty good for a club ground with the indoor nets and the size of the place. I feel like something could work.
Well, it's been 2014 since Northamptonshire played a first-team match in any competition away from Wantage Road. So you're saying you think it's probably a weight that needs to be ended?
Yeah, I'm a little bit biased with that. But yeah, I'm sure we could get down to Dunstable.
That's great. Thank you very much.
No worries.